Welcome back to the Chicagolandians, a casual Chicago sports podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Cunningham, joined by my co-host, Conor Cunningham.
We're two brothers from the Chicagoland area talking about the latest and greatest in Chicago sports news.
Welcome back to another episode of the Chicagolandians podcast. I am your host, Conor Cunningham, joined today by my co-host, Patrick Cunningham.
Hello.
Hello, Patrick. It's great to have you here. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about an exciting week of Chicagolandians football. We have two major wins that we want to talk about this weekend, one from the Fighting Illini and one from the Monsters of the Midway, Chicago Bears. So we're going to get into those both today. Pat, how's that sound? How was this weekend for you, Pat? It was pretty exciting, right?
It was a pretty jazzy weekend. We had the Illinois upset win that we'll get to later, and then the Bears win. 2 pluses on the weekend. I will say some negatives, some thorns of the weekend. I went 1-3 in fantasy, so you can't have them all.
Well,
but
okay, let's not bring your personal problems into this podcast.
But I'm still happy I'm willing to sacrifice those losses if it means Bears for a Bears win.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very brave of you. We'll get into it a little bit too. Maybe we can open up
Into my fantasy team or into.
I don't want to put this podcast in a box, so we'll see where it goes. But
Okay.
Yeah, let's get into it. So let's start off with some news outside of football. So first kind of bit of news that we want to talk about is the Chicago White Sox recently got, in the show notes we listed as a massive dub against the Boston Red Sox to cut our deficit on 578 games. So we are now, at the time of recording this podcast, we are sitting at...
I think we're 30 and 111. I think.
Are you sure about that? I believe we are 33 and 111.
Ooh, bad. Okay.
We worked hard for those 3 wins. So yeah, we're 33 and 111 right now. So we're trying to avoid the worst record in MLB history, which would be at 120 games. As long as we don't lose 9 games, we'll be under that 120 mark. Now, Pat, I know you wrote this up. It kind of seems like you're writing this as we're trying to achieve this. You're saying the White Sox need to go 9-9 in their final 18 games to tie the MLB record.
I mean, what a story. What a story that would be. If we're going to be bad, why don't we be the worst team? So if we lose 9 games, we will tie the MLB record. So if we lose 10, we'll be the worst team ever. But if we lose 9, we'll still be the worst team in AL history. So what a story that would be if we do that and then next year we win the World Series. I mean, come on. How about that? I mean, we're pretty close. 78 behind 500. We're like right there for next season.
They're all one-score games. You flip a couple plays, turn a couple double plays there. That's 78 wins right there, yeah. It's pretty shocking to look at Chicago sports in the last 5 years, how we have had the worst football team, the worst hockey team, and now the worst baseball team in the league in the span of 5 years. The only problem with this baseball team, I know we talk a lot about the importance of bottoming out in sports to acquire that high-value draft capital. Not going to be the case for the White Sox this year because we are a large market team. I know we've talked about this before, so we will not be able to capitalize on our prospective 128 losses, which is unfortunate. So we're kind of just going to have to wear this 120-loss season, kind of dust ourselves off, say, all right, season didn't go our way.
All right, that didn't work.
Gonna have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and just take it a week at a time, take it a game at a time, and move on from there. Only up from here.
Literally only up.
Literally only up from here. I guess we're not. That's not true because we're not the worst team yet. But gonna go against the Guardians today at 6:40 p.m. at Guaranteed Rate Stadium. If you guys want to buy tickets, you could probably scoop them up right now. The Guardians are currently sitting in first in the AL Central. The White Sox are at the time of recording this, we're currently in last in the AL Central. We are a few games behind. We're 48.5 games behind the lead. 48.5 games behind. So something to keep an eye on. But yeah, go Sox.
Did you say that game's at 6:40?
Yeah.
So, this is not relevant to the time of this release, But for those, if any of you are intercepting our wavelengths, you guys can either watch the Chicago White Sox or the Monday Night Football game of the 49ers against the New York Jets. I mean, really, I think both are just as exciting to watch. I think they're both happening around the same time. So, kind of pick and choose there.
Now, are you being sarcastic, Pat, or are you being serious? For the audio listeners, it might not be hard to pick up your kind of visual, because you were doing a lot of air quotes with your fingers and you were kind of winking with both eyes. So are you being sarcastic or not?
No, I'm not being sarcastic. I think White Sox baseball is must-see television right now. With this possible historic moment on the line, we're must-watch TV.
Lenil Sosa or Lenine Sosa is must-watch baseball. So kind of some down in the baseball world for the Chicago White Sox. Also down, a fallen angel, we could say. Angel Reese of the Chicago Sky is out for the rest of the season, which is very unfortunate. Angel Reese was having actually a really great season. She was averaging a double-double with 13.6 points, 13.1 rebounds, and almost a steal and a half per game. She had the second most in a double-doubles in WNBA history with 26. She set the record for consecutive double-doubles, which is crazy, and she broke the record for single-season rebounds and offensive rebounds, all in her rookie season. So Angel Reese was really having a hell of a season. Very disappointing to see her go out for the year, but doesn't take away from the incredible rookie campaign that Angel Reese has had.
Yeah. I think the Sky are having a tough conclusion to their season. I think we've lost 8 of our last 10 games, but we're still looking to get that 8th seed spot. So it's exciting to see. But I think good things are ahead for the Sky. I think Angel Reese is one of the best players in the league, and I think we'll have a lot of success coming in the future for the Sky.
Yeah, so it's a hairline fracture in her wrist that I believe could have been fixed to continue the season, but I think we're sitting at 13-22 right now. So I think to avoid long-term damage, I think just parking her for the rest of the season. I think that's fine. But yeah, sad to see. I think
she splashed a 3 for her last shot of her season. So that's very symbolic of what's to come.
Well, Angel, get better. Always welcome on the pod. Angel's team, if you guys want to join us on the Chicagolandians, please politely bang our lines. Now, moving on to some more football, more pigskin-related incidents and occurrences around the league, around the world, mostly around the Illinois area. On Saturday, the Illinois Fighting Illini defeated the Kansas Jayhawks 23-17, upsetting the 19th ranked Kansas at Memorial Stadium. This was an electric game, a game that we highlighted in our last episode. And frankly, in our last episode, we did not have a lot of confidence going into this game. The national media did not have a lot of confidence in the Fighting Illini going into this game. On College Game Day, Kirk Herbstreit was the only person to pick Illinois to defeat Kansas, even though we were playing at home at Memorial at a sold-out stadium. But we came out and didn't play a perfect game, but Kansas played far from a perfect game, and we got the victory. Kansas, Jalen Daniels, their all-world quarterback, and we're not going to throw too much mud. But Jalen Daniels did look horrendous in this game.
Awful.
He threw 3 interceptions, 3 very bad interceptions. He was 18 for 32. For the Illinois side, Zachary Franklin went 9 for 99, including 2 really incredible sideline catches. One one-handed catch down the sideline that looked almost effortless. It didn't look almost effortless. It did look effortless, as well as a nice toe drag swag catch. That was an important first down conversion that he had there. And that's also a catch in the NFL, right? In college football, you only have the 1-foot rule. So Zachary Franklin said, I'm going to get 2 feet down and convert this first down. So he had a great game. Pat Bryant also had a good game. He went 3 for 70. And Xavier Scott, ex-Gon Give It To You, had a incredible game on the defensive side of the ball. He had 2 interceptions and a sack. Probably the biggest play of the game was his end of the first half pick 6 that he had on Jalen Daniels. Kansas got the ball back with about a minute left in the first half, and they were running the clock out, or they were running the ball for most of it. And then they decided to air the ball out. Jalen Daniels threw a pretty rough pick 6 to Xavier Scott to give us our first, I believe that was our first touchdown of the game, right? And our first real points that we had scored. total momentum shift. The whole stadium was rocking. Xavier Scott really had a great game. And finally, Miles Scott, our safety, also had a pretty solid game. He is kind of our leader, I feel like, in our secondary, and he had 1 interception as well. But overall, super exciting game to be a part of. Really excited that Illinois got the victory. We did storm the field after we won this game, which was interesting. In my opinion, not a game that warranted storming the field, but still a very big win, probably the biggest win that we've had for the program since our Penn State or Wisconsin wins. So a top 25 win, even at home, is nothing to snuff at. This is a great win, and hopefully a tone-setting win for Brett and the rest of the squad. We're going to see what kind of momentum we can carry into the rest of Big Ten play to see if we can really start to become a contender in the Big Ten and maybe even compete for one of those 12 playoff spots.
Hey, how about those Scots? We really let the Scots outside. Am I right?
What?
Said, how about those Scots? They got 3 turnovers. It's pretty good.
What is let the Scots outside?
Isn't that a Travis Scott song? The Scots.
Oh.
We let the Scots outside.
Oh. That's a good joke. That was a good one.
So we really let
We'll dice that up to make that joke.
Yeah, we'll cut that up. We really let the Scots outside. Yeah, I thought this was a great game. Some big takeaways I thought were, again, last week we highlighted the strong receiving core that Illinois had, led by Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant. And I think this game showed that, even if Altmaier didn't throw for a ton of yards, it still showed that we do have dominant playmakers that are willing to go up and catch the ball and make a play. And I think that'll hopefully continue for our next couple games and maybe lead us to even getting a ranked spot.
Yeah. So I think we're currently 26th in AP voting. I think we're sitting right behind NIU, our Northern Directional Brotherhood, who had an incredible win on the road against Notre Dame, number 5 Notre Dame. So love to see that. But we have Central Michigan coming up this week. Never want to write our team off. This would really mess up our season if we drop this game. But
Notre Dame
we have a
fans
strong
are quivering right now with what you just said there.
Yeah, with these little write-off games. Yeah, exactly. Like Notre Dame probably thought they were just going to go run up NIU and continue their season forward. So never want to write off an opponent. This would definitely be a tough look if we drop to Central Michigan. But hopefully we can have a strong performance against Central Michigan for a homecoming game that can bump us into the top 25. So exciting things moving forward for Illinois. But moving forward, the real meat of this podcast we want to dedicate to, this is going to be a few days for you listening today, but Sunday, yesterday for us, the Chicago Bears took on the Titans of Tennessee in the opening week of the 2024 season. This is the debut of Rome Odunze. This is the debut of Caleb Williams. This is the debut of Austin Booker, Torrey Taylor, Karan Amagaji. This is the debut of the new look savior Chicago Bears. Just from a high level, we got the victory. At the end of the day, nothing you can take away. A win in the National Football League is a win. It's as simple as that. This is the first time a quarterback who has been selected number 1 overall in the draft has won their debut since David Carr, not Derek Carr, David Carr in 2002. Quarterbacks otherwise were 0-14 and 1 in their rookie debuts. So it's great to get a win. This is definitely a team win. We'll get more into the specifics overall, but it's great to walk away week 1 with a victory. And Williams is the first Bears rookie QB to win their season opener since 1950. So really an exciting time. Overall, it's probably not the debut that many Bears fans were hoping for, or at least expected, but a win's a win.
It was a painful game for that first half. The first drive was okay, but then after the first quarter, me and the people I was watching the game with started to really think this is a repeat of the last decade of Bears football that we've gotten to watch, and it was pretty scary. Thankfully, we turned it around, and I think if we're able to squeeze out a win playing like that, there's good things coming ahead for when our offense really starts to fire on all cylinders. But man, when we were down 17 and Williams was struggling, defense was struggling, it really made you nervous and made you feel like a fool for believing in this team for a whole off season. But we'll get into that later.
I know, yeah, definitely the time is a flat circle. Started to feel like your fandom of the Chicago Bears is just a big mockery that God makes a mockery of time and time again. But let's get into it. Caleb Williams went 14 for 29, so under 50% on completion percentage for 93 yards. He threw 0 interceptions, 0 touchdowns, and took 2 sacks for 29 yards of sacks. One of them was a 19-yard sack as well within the red zone, which is pretty tough. Rushing perspective, DeAndre Swift got 10 carries for 30 yards with a 20-yard long run. Caleb Williams was 5 carries for 15 yards. He had a great 11-yard first down run that he had. DJ Moore had a designed run as well for 14 yards. DJ Moore led the receiver room with 5 catches for 36 yards. Keenan Allen had 11 targets, which led the Bears receiving room for 29 yards. He did have an end zone drop that was disappointing to see. Rome Odunze had 4 targets and 1 reception. That was a pretty wild play that we can talk about. This was the second quarter, our end zone drive that we were going. Caleb Williams dropped back to fire a slant pass to DJ Moore. Threw it ahead of DJ Moore, hit the Titans defender, the defender's safety in the head, went straight up into the air, and Rome Odunze caught the ricochet from it for an 11-yard gain. As soon as he caught it, he fumbled the ball, and the Bears recovered it. So tough that he fumbled the ball, but first reception for Rome Odunze. Something to note is Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet combined for 2 targets. So the tight end position could have been a scheme issue or could have been just the way that the game went. Tight ends was definitely not a focus for Williams or the Bears offense. Cole Kmet only had 1 reception for 4 yards. So his only target, at least he caught, but Gerald Everett had 1 catch as well, which is a designed screen pass after Caleb Williams took his 19-yard sack, which was an uninspiring play to watch. So I think the main takeaway is that the offense really struggled this game. It was very uninspiring to watch. Caleb Williams looked uncomfortable. He rushed a lot of throws. He missed multiple people on deep balls, most specifically Keenan Allen on an out and up in the first quarter. Had a very bad miss on him. He had a miss on DeAndre Carter as well. So the offense definitely struggled all throughout the game. Never really felt like they could get into their rhythm. But in the other aspects of the game, we really had a great showing from our defense and also from our special teams. So DeAndre Carter, who is our new punt and kick returner that we got from the Los Angeles Chargers, put in a great game. Following, and Pat, I know you're going to love to hear this, following a Velus Jones kickoff fumble, DeAndre Carter took a kick return 67 yards. He averaged 67 yards per return. Is that right?
He returned 1 kickoff, so he averaged 67 yards. But on punt,
sense.
he totaled, I think, 63 yards of punt returns, averaged about, 12 yards per punt return. Played well.
So Carter looked great too. But let's go through the flow of the game. So in the first quarter, our defense, I feel like, looked solid right away. First and our early 3-and-out on Will Levis. We were having a lot of good QB pressure, I felt like. Will Levis looked uncomfortable in the pocket throughout the whole game. We forced a 3-and-out early. Offense had a slow start. We gave the ball right back to the Titans, and Caleb Williams kind of had his first miss. It was in the first quarter. It was a 3rd down play where Keenan Allen had a nice double move where he missed, just overthrew Keenan Allen. It looked like Williams kind of rushed the throw. He looked uncomfortable. I will say Allen did look pretty smooth and pretty fluid throughout the game. He did have a heel injury coming into this game and had the whole camp storyline of being 230 pounds. So he looked better than what we had saw in preseason, and he did look more like the old Keenan Allen that we had seen last year. But in the first quarter, Williams also took a very bad 19-yard sack that took us out of field goal range and had to kind of dash our end zone drive that we had in the first quarter. Pressure right in his face as soon as he snapped the ball, and he kind of tried to take the bad play and did make it worse, trying to avoid the sack moving backwards for 19 yards. That was tough to see. Our defense did look solid most of the first quarter. Started to fade a little bit, and Tony Pollard popped off 26-yard rushing yard touchdown to kind of cap off the first quarter. Some of the people that we were watching the game with after the first few drives were starting some fire flus rumblings around the couches, so it was definitely some dire times for us. Definitely very Bears fan-esque comments that were going around, but first quarter was not what you wanted. First half was definitely not what you wanted overall. Pat, what were your early reactions?
My first reactions were Caleb Williams he looked like a completely different player from preseason, but he almost could do no wrong in that preseason game. And every time he got the ball, I felt like I was waiting for him to do something spectacular, like with that rollout to Rome Odunze. But this game, he certainly looked more like a green rookie that was uncomfortable almost.
He looked like a rookie,
game.
yeah.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely looked like a rookie, which I think is super understandable. But from my perspective, it was very scary because drafting these QBs and having them come in as your presumed starter is a pretty, not a new thing in the NFL, but becoming more popular, more typical to have this bridge quarterback. So bringing in Williams and having him start like that was pretty concerning. I think another thing that stood out to me in that first quarter, I feel like our defense the whole game had a lot of ups and downs, but the first quarter I thought we looked pretty strong. I think emphasized with our strong run defense. I think TJ Edwards is quickly becoming the best player on our on our defense. I think him or Jalen Johnson, I think, are our best
Most
players.
consistent for sure, yeah.
Holy cow, man. He is always making plays. I think, Connor, you said he had 15 tackles this game?
15 tackles, yeah. That led the NFL this week.
Yeah, he is truly the leader, a leader of our defense. You know, Jalen Johnson, I think, only got targeted 3 or 4 times, so, it's hard to see his impact. His impact is more, stuff that happens in the shadows, but TJ Edwards was absolutely fantastic this entire game. It was really exciting to see. The last thing I thought was exciting about the first quarter was, like you said, Connor, DeAndre Carter, his very electric kick returns. Carter was a guy I didn't really know about before the game, I feel like. Before the ball was in his hands, I didn't recognize the player. He was pretty electrifying anytime he touched the ball. Super fast, willing to pick up the ball on punts, make moves, and makes you wonder why we have Velus back, why we even had Velus back there if we had this guy there.
DeAndre Carter honestly looked great. When we were just really bombing on both defense and offense, it was really nice to at least be able to get some productivity out of the special teams. So he was definitely giving us juice when other players were not. But yeah, I think Caleb Williams for sure just looked like a rookie. It's tough when you have these enormous expectations for Williams. Since we even started talking about the idea of having Williams back in the fall of last year, right? We've had these incredible, grandiose plans for Williams when he'd come in, and it's disappointing when you expect the world from somebody and they only play okay. And I think that's how the whole debut for Williams looked. He didn't look great. It wasn't a complete disaster. He had no interceptions. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't have any fumbles. Didn't have a lot of wow plays. In the second quarter, he missed DeAndre Carter on another deep ball. It was another bad overthrow. It looked like kind of the touch that he had when he was throwing in the pocket on those deep balls especially was definitely missing. He did a couple really good rollout plays. I feel like rollout is where Williams is the best for sure. He has that otherworldly ability to throw on the run. But the second quarter was kind of a lot of the same, but we started to see the defense fade a little. Tyreek Stevenson got beat by Chigakonkwo on an end zone pass. But it's tough to hold a team for a whole half, right? If the defense can only make so many stops before eventually the offense is going to get a point. I think there was also some points throughout the first half and throughout the game too where the Bears just kind of looked sloppy. Sweat had an ugly false start that was uncharacteristic. We had some bad offensive holdings. We had, I think, multiple punt returns where we had holdings, and we had delay of game as well. So it seemed like we weren't really ready to play. And our offensive line for sure was an issue early on and throughout the whole game. Coleman Shelton definitely didn't look great. He had one play specifically. It was a third down stunt by the Titans, and there was 2 men on that Coleman Shelton reached over to triple team the guy. The stunting rusher for the Titans reached around and went unblocked into Caleb Williams. So I think our interior part of our offensive line is still an issue and is probably going to be an issue for the rest of the season. I will say Nate Davis was actually the 5th highest rated player according to PFF. He was the only offensive player ranked inside the top 5 for the Bears. So Nate Davis had a decent game, but I think that center position is still open. You thought it couldn't happen, but Velus Jones did fumble the kickoff. You know what? You did think it could happen. As soon as the ball was kicked and you saw Velus Jones was back there returning, you thought, I hope he doesn't drop it. And what can go wrong will go wrong. It bounced off his foot, and the Titans recovered it. I know I have recently appeared on this podcast as a Velus Jones truther, a supporter, and I'm not going to backtrack my opinions now and say that I didn't say those things. I did say those things. I did have those opinions on Velus Jones, but I won't stand by these actions. He shouldn't be the guy returning kicks. He doesn't have the ability to catch the ball, which is probably the primary skill that you need to have to be in that position. You stick your neck out for and hope he does something right, and then the first chance he gets, he just totally beefs it. The one red zone series that we had here, it was interesting to look at the play calling that we had. We got the ball into the red zone, and we went 3 straight passes for 3 and out. But one of them was a Keenan Allen out that was right by the pylon that would have been a touchdown, but that was a drop from Keenan Allen. It's tough when you're having these really slow games and you get opportunities to score points and then just have a drop like that really turns off the momentum for the offense, and especially Williams, who was clearly uncomfortable throughout the whole game. It would have been nice if he could have gotten like a confidence boost there, just getting an easy touchdown, especially his first touchdown of the season. But yeah, so we ended up down 14 points into half. Very bleak start to the season, especially against the Titans, who profile as a bottom tier team in the NFL probably.
Yeah, so first half, it was rough. I don't need to talk much about Velus Jones because he is, doesn't do much for the team, doesn't do much for the podcast, but just last week
he does do stuff for the pot. He gives us plenty of stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, he gives us plenty. Yeah, just last week I said even if he's not playing wide receiver, he finds a way he'll still make an impact on the team negatively. I feel like Williams, there was a couple concerning things. It was strange to see him missing so many throws. The first big miss he had to Keenan Allen, I feel like I hadn't seen him miss a ball all preseason.
Or that bad, to miss a ball that bad.
Like, that was genuinely overthrow of, like, several feet. That was strange. And then that 19-yard sack was pretty terrible. The whole preseason, whenever he was scrambling around the run, he seems totally natural and relaxed, and like he has everything under control and he knows where he's at on the field. But that play, he certainly looked like totally out of control. That was certainly something that like everyone is concerned about with Williams, is trying to make the hero play. So it's frustrating to see. It's not frustrating, right? It's his first time playing, right? But it was concerning to see, like, oh, you can definitely see how this improvisation can lead to disaster, right? Because it's 1st and 10, now it's 2nd and 29, and now we run for some reason our 2nd and 29 play is a Gerald Everett screen.
You put the hand in your playmakers, put the ball in.
Like, it was concerning going into halftime, but it was nice to see we could still come away with some points. Not a huge talking point, but Cairo Santos is...
Man, he's awesome.
Unbelievable. Our special teams this game was on fire. Seriously. Jonathan Owens is awesome. Carter was awesome. Torrey Taylor had some great punts. And Cairo Santos is maybe the best kicker. Probably a top 5 kicker in the NFL.
He's
maybe
automatic. Within 50, I feel like he's automatic for sure.
He is automatic. He is unbelievable.
Yeah. I agree. So first half was definitely disappointing, just in general, not the start that we wanted to see from Williams and the rest of the offense. So let's go into the second half. We have this big halftime speech. We weren't in the locker room, but I'm sure Flus really gave some inspiring words in that locker room, hopefully. But to start the second half, the offense came out very sloppy. We had a really bad delay of game penalty that made you think, what the hell were you guys talking about in the locker room? It was very Brad Underwood-esque for Illinois basketball when you just start the second half and you give up a 10-0 run from that bad offensive start. We got to see more of Torrey Taylor. He had 6 punts, 45-yard average, including, I believe, a 60-yard punt that he had in the second half. That was definitely a boom. 3 inside of the 20, so I think Torrey Taylor overall looked pretty solid, which was, I guess, good to see. You never want to have punter having too good of a game. But in the third quarter, we started to have the first momentum shift from our special teams where Daniel Hardy blocked the Tennessee Titans punt that was picked up by Jonathan Owens and returned for a touchdown. This is a huge momentum shift for the game. This is the first time that we really felt like things were going in our direction. It's really important when we have these games going on where if one of the 3 assets of the team, whether it's offense, defense, or special teams, just can't get anything going, it's really up to those other facets to pick them up and make up for the mistakes. So for special teams to come out there and put points on the board, put 7 points on the board, was really incredible. And especially for Jonathan Owens to pick that ball up and return it. I had no confidence if he fell on that ball that we were going to put that ball into the end zone. So for him to pick up and score, very athletic play from him and great momentum shift. That was definitely a turning point in the game So you score points like this, you can't depend on it, but you're glad that it happened. That was an electric play to have in the third quarter. And then Javon Dexter also had a sack, so this is the start of Javon Dexter's glow-up season. He had a sack, so hopefully more sacks to come for him. But the third quarter was definitely highlighted by this blocked punt. But again, you keep waiting for the offense to break something open, and you don't get it.
That blocked punt was unbelievable to see. Hardy, someone that was a preseason monster, that first game where Booker had 2.5 sacks or 2 sacks, Hardy was right there with him with 2.5 sacks. So unbelievable player in the preseason that now has kind of earned his spot on the team and seems like is making the most out of every opportunity he's given, which is pretty unbelievable to see. And then great to see Jonathan Owens, a guy that's worked super hard for everything he's gotten in the NFL. Super exciting to see him scoring a touchdown there.
Also, I think we missed it here, but Darrell Taylor, this game, he had a sack earlier, so we can get into the fourth quarter now. He had a sack earlier in the game. But in the fourth quarter, Darrell Taylor, who, if you don't remember, recently acquired from the Seattle Seahawks in a trade, he had a strip sack for his second sack of the day on third down. Taylor had a really great debut for the Bears, showed that he's worth all the money, the total price that we paid for him to get 2 sacks, led the team in sacks. You definitely saw the return on investment there. So really excited to see him play, and hopefully he can continue to be productive. But this fourth quarter, you really saw the defense take over and really start to put the Bears into a position to win. The biggest play was definitely the Tyreek Stevenson pick 6 that we saw, where, the whole game we had very good QB pressure, I feel like. And this one was Kyler Gordon bearing down on Will Levis. Will Levis gets wrapped up by the Bears, and in classic make a worse play worse, as he's getting sacked, tries to shovel past the ball out of bounds to save the sack. Doesn't put enough juice on it, and Tyreek Stevenson picks it off and returns it for a touchdown. This was definitely the nail in the coffin for the Titans. They were ahead at that point, but to give up a play like that is just pretty boneheaded and definitely a turning point in the game. Thank God that we have this defense here. And thank God that we can create not only turnovers, but points from both special teams and defense. Jalen Johnson also had an interception to end the game. So both Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson really look like a great 1-2 combo. At the cornerback position, Kyler Gordon looked solid too. At the nickelback, Jaquan Brisker had 10 tackles from the safety spot too. So I feel like this whole secondary was looking pretty solid, but man, this defense is super exciting. Tremaine Edmonds looked solid too in coverage. He had a really nice tracking play on third down where he tracked in man coverage a motion guy from one end of the field to the other to stop a third down conversion. Andrew Billings looked solid in the middle. This defense, man, it really is going to be the backbone of our team, and it definitely saved us this week.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw at the end of the game when Caleb Williams was given his interview with a reporter at the end of the game. As he's talking, Johnson comes back behind him and says, and whispers in his ear, and you can hear him whispering, "Defense has got your back 1-8." Just that was pretty cool to hear that when our offense isn't performing, our defense is still good enough to truly steal this game. Time of possession, Bears had 24, almost 25 minutes of possession on offense, and the Titans had 35 minutes. So they held the ball for 10 more minutes than us. Our offense was non-existent. Williams threw for under 100 passing yards. No receiver looked dominant. DeAndre Swift ran for I think 30 yards. It was truly a defense game. If any of you guys have time in your day, 2 minutes in your day, I suggest you guys look up that Will Levis interception, because it's pretty funny. And just focus your attention on Will Levis after he throws that ball. So he's falling down, throws the ball.
Terrible play.
Lays on the ground, looks up, sees Tyreek Stevenson with the ball, and as he's returning it, you see Will Levis on his hands and knees, put his 2 hands up on his head almost, and you can almost hear him saying, "Oh no!
Oh no!"
As if he's watching his father die in Star Wars or something. It was so funny to see that reaction. Such a comical reaction of how bad of a situation it was.
Yeah, that was a terrible play. It was like in a cartoon when somebody knocks over one bike and then knocks over the entire rack of bikes, and you just see, oh no. Will Levis didn't look great. Say what you want about Caleb Williams not looking great. At least he kept the ball safe. Limited turnovers, limited them all the way down to 0. No turnovers. And didn't necessarily do what he had to do to win us the game, but did what he had to do to not lose us the game. DeAndre Swift did have only 30 rushing yards, but 19 of those rushing yards came on an absolutely sick play where he hurdled Quandre Diggs for a 19-yard run. You're kind of watching the play and you go, whoa! DeAndre Swift just hurdled the dude. So that was a great play. That was very exciting. Probably the most exciting play that we had for our offense. DJ Moore also had a cool end-around play for 14 yards. But in the end, Jalen Johnson ended the game with an interception to get the Bears the win. Caleb Williams needed the ball out to finish the game. And the Bears walk out of Soldier Field, walk out of Week 1 with a 1 in the win column and a 0 in the loss column. So we'll say it's very difficult to win in the NFL. It is especially hard to win when you don't have offense cooking. So for us to get a win here, no matter how ugly it looked, it was great. Caleb Williams is a rookie, and it's very difficult for rookies to succeed in the NFL, especially early on. So while we all had incredible expectations for Williams and those didn't pan out, it's okay. This is Week 1, which is a bizarre week across the NFL. We saw the Bengals drop their first game. We saw the Cardinals play the Bills extremely close. The Packers lost their first game. The Falcons looked terrible to open their season against the Steelers. Stuff doesn't always happen the right way in Week 1, and you kind of just chalk that up to getting the rust off. The Bears had 148 total yards of offense. I would expect that to increase in the future. If 98 yards is the max that Caleb Williams can throw for, then we have a quarterback issue. But I don't expect Williams to throw for under 100 for every game that we have. And there's flows throughout the season where there's going to be games where the Bears defense looks like it's made of tissue paper and just can't stop anybody, right? And there's going to be games where the offense looks unbeatable. It's all about this seesaw of where certain aspects of the team needs to pick other parts up. And it was nice to see us be able to get a win when you feel like you can't get a win, right? Getting a win at the end of the day is the most important thing. So I think better days to come. It was exciting to see the talent that we have on defense. Definitely reminiscent of 2018 and years past too. In the Super Bowl era, teams that have scored 0 touchdowns and trailed by 17 or more are 3 and 1,225, which is a .08 win percentage. One of the only other teams to do that was the 2006 Chicago Bears against the Arizona Cardinals. The Bears snuck out a victory even when probability said that it's not possible. It's funny that the Bears are kind of hold a monopoly on these types of wins. Ugly victory, but a victory nonetheless.
It's just exciting to have Bears football back. Super exciting. You got to, when I looked on Twitter at the end of the game and I saw, I don't know if we're calling it club dub or not, but whatever, the dancing, there's music, there are lights on in the locker room after the game. Yes. It is a club that congregates after a victory, so however you want to name that. But it's pretty exciting to feel that energy and see all those guys gassing each other up. Some other takeaways that I had. So, Connor, you mentioned the sloppy game. I don't know if we ever put it into concrete values. We had 7 penalties for 55 yards, which isn't, 7 penalties is a lot. 55 yards isn't horrendous.
55 yards, 55 hot dogs, 55 hamburgers.
But I expected less penalties, especially given the preseason games where we played pretty clean, especially those first couple games. We were almost perfect, I feel like, on penalties. And given Flus, this is his, how many years he's been coaching. And then this is a very veteran team. It's still disappointing to see us kind of being an undisciplined team. Something else with Williams, Connor, you mentioned it last week, I think, or maybe 2 weeks ago, that Williams was having this problem in practice with getting the ball knocked down. Yeah. And that really stood out to me. That happened maybe 2 or 3 times in this game where, he's throwing the ball, lineman gets his hands up, bounces off, which is really something you don't notice a lot or you don't think about, right?
Until you notice it.
Yeah, exactly. The linemen are always putting their hands out, trying to block the ball. But you never really notice it until it becomes a problem. Like, I feel like it happens once a game, but then when it keeps happening, you think like, oh boy, he's got to get that ball up higher. So maybe we need more of that dedicated practice this week trying to fix that arm angle. What are your thoughts? I think, in my opinion, I think if we were able to win with our offense looking like that, good things ahead. I feel like we walked into this Titans game thinking we were going to roll these guys, and we didn't look like that. But even when we weren't doing that, we could still win. I'm very hopeful. I think our defense is so good with a lot of veteran talent that'll supplement poor offensive play. But also, that is what we have been in the past, and not – I feel like we've proven that that's not going to work, right?
For sure.
Like, it'll work a couple times, but we need to have that offense firing on all cylinders most of the time.
I think overall, no need to panic or no need to make wide sweeping thoughts or opinions about the outlook of the season. I think in the past, we're definitely, it's Bears football for us to have this strong backbone of offense, defense, poor offense. I feel like this time around, though, we have talent all across this roster. This is a very talented roster, and that was so apparent on the defensive side of the ball with so many defensive players making plays. But also on offense, we have dudes who can make plays. Keenan Allen did not look 230 pounds, did not look like he had a heel injury. DJ Moore still looked very fast and capable. Odunze he didn't look great, but he is out there on the field and is a promising rookie who will have a productive career. Caleb Williams obviously showed flashes, and DeAndre Swift is okay. And Cole Kmet is there too. So we have talent on this offense, and our O-line isn't great, but we still have at least Darnell Wright, and Braxton Jones is capable. So we have, and Tevin Jenkins is good. We have talent here on offense, and I think that the offensive unit will continue to get better throughout the season. I don't think that our defense, we can depend on them having this productive of a game every week, but I think overall it's a difficult debut that the Bears could have had, but it's great to walk out with a win. It's a really long season. 17 games is such a long season that there's going to be a whole lot of development. Not to compare, but Jordan Love didn't start having good games until week 9 of last season. So rookie quarterbacks often struggle. Caleb Williams struggled, and we got the win. Next week is going to be a really big task against the Texans at Houston. So that'll be a very showing game for the offense and the defense and the Bears unit as a whole.
Yeah, how you feeling for that next game? I'm pretty excited for that Texans game.
That's exciting.
It's going to be a great game. Chance to really show what our defense is made of. Texans have a phenomenal wide receiver core. Stephon Diggs showed this week that he is still a relevant receiver. Nico Collins and Tank Dell are both dynamic, explosive receivers. And then I think Joe Mixon has proved that he is still...
Joe Mixon was sweet this week.
Yeah, he's still got some juice in the tank. And then C.J. Stroud is not only one of the youngest QBs in the league, but one of the best QBs in the league. I think this next week will be very telling of what this Bears team is actually made of. And it's a primetime game. It's Sunday night, so no more hiding for Caleb. But I think we will rise to the competition, and I think we will play a good game here, and I think it'll certainly be close. I mean, the Colts played them pretty close this week. I think we're just as good as Colts. I think it's going to be a good game.
We're all expecting big things from Caleb, and I still know that Caleb is a special player and will be a special player in the NFL. And it's just a matter of time for that to come out. And once Caleb really starts playing like Caleb can play, I think this team can still be dangerous, and this team will be dangerous as the season moves forward. That's going to do it for this episode of the Chicagolandians. If you made it to the end of this episode, you clearly enjoy the show, so why don't you share it with a friend, some family, maybe not even a friend or family, but just a fan of Chicago sports or sports, maybe. Or just maybe they're fans of podcasts or fans of the audio word. Maybe if they're fans of any of those things, maybe give them the Chicagolandians podcast. On socials, we have presences on TikTok and Instagram, as well as YouTube. You can follow us on Apple Music as well as Spotify. You can email us at Chicagolandians podcast, or at Chicagolandians.
At Chicagolandians.
At Chicagolandians for all business inquiries / sponsorship opportunities. We're open to most anything and all sponsorships that we can get. We can work out the contract details. But thank you again for listening to this episode of the Chicagolandians, and we'll leave you with a bear down.
Bear down, baby.